Welcome, welcome. My name is Lauren Rexroth, and as a healthcare provider and a woman and a mother of 3 kids that go to public school, I am so excited to see all of y'all at a Jalapeno County event. Woo! I would like to take a quick second to welcome our special guests, Mr. Luis Rodriguez, Carla Shuno Reporter, Becky Lenore, Sonia Larson, Mady Williams, Ann Powers, and Adrian Martin. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much. Hello, y'all. I'm Janet Dutton. I'm running for Texas Comptroller, which is the state's account. Did y'all know we have never had a CPA as our comptroller, as the state's accountant? And it shows. Y'all, I grew up in public schools. I was all-state tutor player. And I used to ride the Greyhound bus to visit my aunts and uncle and beg one of my aunts and uncle to take me out of Possum Kingdom Lake, where I learned how to water ski, where I learned how to fish. Y'all, this is God's country. This is just beautiful out here. After high school, I got married, and that didn't work out. So I threw myself into school. I went 20 hours a semester. Started working full time for the state auditor's office in Mississippi. Threw myself in my MBA program. There's a lot of growing going on. Threw myself in the MBA program and became a CPA. But I'm a different kind of CPA. My first job out of school was actually investigating allegations that elected officials had embezzled taxpayer money or are taking kickbacks. I've spent my whole adult life in state and local governmental accounting, audit, administration, even investigations, to hold government accountable to people as opposed to special interests. And that's the kind of control. That's the kind of people. And y'all, I think every one of us in this room know that there is no calendar coming this year. We are the calendar. Every single one of us. Man, I've never met anyone more suited to that role than Jay Clayburgh. Susan Hayes as Ag Commissioner, I love Susan Hayes, and she will be incredible. She grew up on a ranch. To Luke Warford as Railroad Commissioner. We gotta have her together. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Billy Slater.
I never in my wildest imagination thought that a little old teacher here from Wayne, Texas, would be standing here with all you beautiful people with Beto O'Rourke. I'm truly blessed. My name is Billy Slater. I'm American. Right here. I'm from Wayne, Texas, which is far west Texas. Wayne, Texas. You see, you can hear this accent. I'm a woman. been married to this wonderful man right here for almost 47 years. I'm a teacher. I'm a retired teacher. I believe in God and I'm a Christian. I'm a 10-year colon cancer survivor. And I'm a yellow dog Democrat. I wasn't raised in Wake, Texas with a silver spoon in my mouth. We were poor. But we're loved by everyone. People just shut up. And that's what we need to do now. We've been so long with people not helping one another. We've got to start helping people. I started following Mr. Beto here in 2017. He and Mr. Representative Will Hurd got on your little Impala Chevrolet out of San Antonio and headed to Washington, D.C. Now, he's a musician like I am. I taught music here. I'm a musician and a teacher of music. And the one thing that I remember about that was them singing Willie Nelson's On the Road Again. And also, Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire. I fell into the garden, ring of fire. Down, 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 the flames went higher. And burn, burn, that ring of fire. Good singing, that ring of fire. That's wonderful singing. I voted for you, Beto, in the Senate race and the presidential race. And I'm going to vote for you this time, buddy. You know, he cares for the little people. You can see me. We're little people. Not one of us out here was born with a silver spoon in their mouth. He has a sense in his dealing with people. He doesn't lie. To get things done. And I observe this with him. You've observed this with him, or you wouldn't be here. Yeah. His ideas with the different sections of our society is going to make our state of Texas the greatest it's ever been. We're going to practice something here just a minute. I'm a music teacher. I've got to practice with you for you. I taught 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. Oh, wasn't that fun? You haven't lived till you go to the Macarena with a pair of high heel shoes and a pair of dress. And also the recorders. You all remember those recorders? 8 o'clock in the morning. Oh, but I love to remember those. So we're going to practice here just a minute. I want everybody to stand up. Stand up, come on. Stand up, come on. Now, I want you to put your hands together and I want you to clap. your signs ready. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go! We need a change. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome the reason we're here and the reason I'm going to the polls. And I hope you meet me there, polls, and you vote for Beto. Beto, welcome to River West.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you. Billy, thanks for getting us off. Getting us stomping and singing and clapping and moving. I love it. Thank you all for being here. Listen, part of the reason we're here is that we're going everywhere to be with everyone, writing nobody off, taking nobody for granted. You cannot be too Republican, too Abbott, too Democrat, too Beto for us to show up and care about you. It doesn't matter to me how big or small your community is, how easy or hard it is for us to reach. In fact, we're on day 23 of a 49-day push through Texas. And we've been in the big liberal hotspots like Muleshoe and Amarillo and Quanah, Weatherford, Longview, Texarkana, Pittsburgh, Palestine. You know the places I'm talking about, right? But I'm most excited to be here, and I'll tell you why. It does not matter where I am in the state of Texas, but people from Palo Pinto County come. And we were in Fannin County not too long ago. We were in Grayson County the next day. We can be in Dallas County, Tarrant County, does not matter where. You all show up and you say, when are you going to come to Palo Pinto? And so not only did we come to Palo Pinto, but ladies and gentlemen, we brought the rain with us. Yeah, that's what we need. I want to thank everyone for coming, and I want to begin with this. The differences at a time that we are so damn divided do not matter to us. No me importa if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, who you pray to, how many generations you can count yourself a Texan, or whether you just got here recently and are making your best effort to do better for yourself and to do better for all of us. Who you love, how you love, that's your business, not mine. The fact that you're here, and as Billy said, we're all human beings, we're all Texans, we're all Americans. And so I want to begin with this. My best hope of serving you as the next governor of this state is to listen to you. I'm going to introduce myself, share with you a little bit about what I want to be able to do as governor, but I also want to hear you. And I want to hear everyone. And I know there's some folks who will not vote for us in this next election. That's okay. My responsibility as your governor is to treat and serve everyone equally. So I want to hear a round of applause for these Abbott supporters who are here. We're glad that you all came. Thank you for coming out. That's not easy to do. But you're welcome to join us, and we're glad that you're here. The other thing that I want to let you all in on, and this is some big news, is we are going to win this election on the night of November 8th. We're going to get this done. And I know that we're going to win because all of us here together, Democrat, Republican, and Independent, are fighting for every woman to make her own decisions about her own future, her own health care. We're doing that right here in the state of Texas. I know that we're going to win because we are going to fight for every public school educator, every teacher, every counselor, every librarian. We're going to make sure that we pay them enough to work just one job instead of 2 or 3. We're going to listen to them when they say, hey, Beto, after 2 years of pandemic and learning loss and everything that these kids are going through, the last thing I need is a high-stakes, high-pressure test. We are canceling the STAR in the state of Texas so you can focus on those kids as you need to be able to do. To our great retired teachers like Billy, we're going to make sure there's a cost of living adjustment every single year so it keeps pace with inflation and so you don't have to work into your retirement. I'm going to make sure that now 11 weeks since we lost 19 kids and their 2 teachers shot to death with a weapon originally designed for use in combat, legally purchased by an 18-year-old who did not try to obtain one when he was 16 or 17, but followed the law that's on the books, ladies and gentlemen, that says that you can buy not one, you can buy 2 or more if you want to, AR-15s, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and take that weapon that was originally designed for use on the battlefields in Vietnam to penetrate an enemy soldier's helmet at 500 feet and knock him down dead, up against kids at 5 feet. It may be funny to you, motherfucker, but it's not funny to me, okay? We're going to make sure that our kids who are starting their school year right now, that they don't have to worry about somebody walking into their school with a weapon like this, that we take common sense steps, we find the common ground, Democrats and Republicans, gun owners, non-gun owners alike, and make sure that at a minimum, we raise the minimum age of purchase from 18 to 21 for an AR-15, that we have a universal background check for anyone who wants to buy a gun in the state of Texas. And then we have a red flag law. So listen, if you have that firearm, as this young man did, and you are threatening to kill people so bad that his friends called him the school shooter before he ever walked into the school and shot anybody. Listen, we've had 5 of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history in this state in the last 5 years, just under Greg Abbott. Now, you either accept that we are inherently evil and violent and deadly and love to kill each other and slaughter kids where they sit, or that there is something that you and I can do together, regardless of the differences between us. That's where I am right now. I want to make sure that in this great democracy, 246 years into this experiment, where we are able to freely and fairly choose those who will serve us, represent us in positions of public trust and power, something that is the exception on the planet today is not the rule over the course of world history. That we can pull this off non-violently, peacefully settle our differences at the ballot box is pretty damn special. But in this state right now, we are dead last in the country in the ability to cast a ballot, in the ability to register to vote, to be on the rolls, to make sure that your voice is heard and that your vote is counted. 13% of the mail-in ballots cast in March of this year were rejected in this state. Now, if we were to watch the news tonight and they said, hey, Venezuela held national elections today and 13% of the ballots were rejected, we'd say, look, that checks out. It's not a real democracy. It's not like us here in Texas. That is happening in Texas today. We need to make sure that we counter this attack on our democracy, to make sure that all of us, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, whatever the differences between us, can freely and fairly participate in this democracy. Because, think about this, there are men and women in here right now who have served all of us in uniform. Their predecessors were willing to fight fascism half a world away in World War II to defend democracy here at home. We all understand that our freedom, our rights, this democracy was purchased with the sacrifice, the blood, and the lives of those Americans who preceded us. We know that those who were leaders in the civil rights and voting rights movement of the 50s and 60s added to that service and sacrifice by making sure that we live in a multiracial democracy. Regardless of the color of your skin, your country of national origin, the differences between us, you are supposed to be able to freely and fairly participate. Well, nowhere is that under greater attack than right here in the state of Texas. So we must also fight for free and fair elections here, which means ease in being able to register to vote. How about automatic voter registration when you turn 18 in the state of Texas? Same day voter registration, reopening all these closed polling places across the state, ending the gerrymandering of our districts where politicians pick their voters instead of the other way around. And that veteran who was willing to give her life for all of us, the fewer than 1% who've enlisted in the armed forces since we were attacked on 9/11, who are coming back right now from Afghanistan, from Iraq, with toxic burn pit exposure because they breathed in literally God only knows what. It was medical waste, it was toxins, it was chemicals. We don't all the way know, but now that they're here, back in Mineral Wells, they're having a hard time breathing. And they look back on their brothers and sisters who served in Vietnam, who waited 40 years for exposure to Agent Orange to be treated as a presumptive condition for the cancers that took their lives and that they're struggling to survive through right now at this minute. That's why we as Texans, all of us, have to make sure that this generation coming back doesn't also wait 40 years. We're going to stand up our own toxic burn pit exposure registry right here in the state of Texas. Connect every woman and man who served with that care that they need. Make sure that the hundreds of homeless veterans in this state have a roof over their head, a place to call home, an address to place on every employment application form so that they can get ahead. And to you who have told me that after serving this country and coming back with post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injury or these signature wounds and conditions of combat and service, the VA has been all too ready to prescribe you an opioid to which you may become addicted and from which you may die. And you say, you know what, Beto? The one thing that buys me any peace, allows me to have an appetite and to sleep and to not notice my symptoms is cannabis. But if I use it in Texas, I'm a criminal in the eyes of the law. Ladies and gentlemen, we are legalizing marijuana in the state of Texas going forward. Nobody should be locked up for possession of a substance that's legal almost everywhere else in the country. As I looked at what some of you are paying for internet access in this community, it says, in Thiessen, they say, and you tell me if I'm wrong, that a quarter of the residents of Palo Pinto County can reliably get high-speed broadband internet. And on average, your high-speed broadband internet bills, when you're lucky enough to have it, are $140 a month. Partly that is due to the fact that our governor, Greg Abbott, just vetoed the Universal Service Fund that underwrites access to the telephone and to the internet in rural communities. You all know your history. 1936, the REA, LBJ, who was a congressman at the time, FDR, who was our president, they said, you know what? These big utilities and corporations will never wire your towns for light. It's just not in their profit motive interest to do so. So if you form a co-op, we'll meet you halfway, and we'll make sure that your first grader can read by electric light the night before their homework is due, just like the first grader in Dallas or London or Tokyo or anywhere else. When we did that, the people here in Mineral Wells, the people in Palestine, Texas, the people in these smaller communities knew that they mattered just as much as anyone else. But when half of rural Texas cannot get online today, in the year of our Lord, 2022, when the cattle you're raising you cannot get to market, and you're already struggling because all of your inputs, the fuel, the feed, the fertilizer are going through the roof. You're being crushed by the 3 corporate slaughterhouses in this state that control everything that goes on. Your margins are nothing right now. And if you can't get online, try getting what you raise to market. Try starting a small business. Try finishing your education. If you are single and lonely, try finding a date if you cannot use the internet today. We've got to make sure that we invest in our communities so that the best jobs in America can be created right here in the state of Texas, but not only in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex or Houston or San Antonio or Austin, but here as well. The young people growing up here, every bit as deserving of these opportunities. Think about what we're talking about right here, okay? If you have friends, family members who didn't come out to this, and they ask you, what is this guy about? We'll say, look, he talked about making sure women can make their own decisions. He talked about school teachers having the backing and support so they actually stay in the classroom and they can afford to do that without taking on a second or a third job. He talked about making sure that we have the best jobs in this community, not $7.25, not $9 an hour, jobs that pay the way and offer you purpose and fulfillment and function in your life. He talked about this one, expanding Medicaid so more people could see a provider in their communities. There's not enough full-time mental health care providers in Palo Pinto County. I know that because you told me that. This county, like almost every other in the state of Texas, #1 provider of mental health care services is the county jail system. The most immoral and inefficient and expensive way to help someone with untreated schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or clinical depression who does not qualify for Medicaid today in Texas because we have not expanded it, doesn't earn enough to get private insurance or Obamacare, and is just stuck, and very often will get arrested on purpose, $120 a night, to be taken to the one place where he or she is guaranteed just some level of care before they're dumped on the streets again. If we expand Medicaid as Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, our 4 border states, 3 of them with Republican governors have already done, I will bring back to you $10 billion in federal income taxes that you have paid up to DC that should be back in our communities to stand up our hospitals, offer more mental health care, connect more people with life-saving treatment. And the kicker, when we do that, we'll be able to bring down your property taxes. Because right now, when that untreated diabetic, and we lose more kids to diabetes in this state, I'm ashamed to say, than does any other in the union. When that untreated diabetic, finally their something is too much, they have to take themselves into your hospital right here in Mineral Wells. Well, the complications have become so bad that the outcome's not going to be so good for that kid, or that adult for that matter, who has untreated diabetes. And the cost is going to be exponentially more expensive, right? And even though that person doesn't have a dime to their name or an insurance card in their wallet or purse, it's not like the bill goes away. You all pay it in higher property taxes to your county government. That is uncompensated care for indigent Texans. Right now, we could cure that by expanding Medicaid. And I love this idea that I just heard from over here. Why in the world, 102 years after insulin was developed in the first place by 2 scientists in Canada who sold the patent on this to the Canadian government for $2 Canadian, why are we charging people hundreds of dollars a month to stay alive when for cents we can connect them with health care right now? Let's make sure that we bring down those prescription drug costs as well. World-class schools, the ability to see a doctor, great jobs, reproductive health care freedom, supporting our veterans, extending broadband to rural Texas. There's a lot that we're not going to agree on, right? But on that much, I think there is common ground. And wouldn't it be great if you had a governor who was going to focus on the things that actually bring us together, the big things we should be able to do, right? Right now, we've got somebody who's trying to scare you or make you hate people based on the differences between us. Ask Greg Abbott next time he holds a town hall meeting here, just like I'm doing tonight, right? Ask Greg Abbott. Ask Greg Abbott. Ask Greg Abbott, hey, why could you not keep the lights on in the energy capital of the world, right? Why are we freezing in our homes? Why are we paying more in utility bills? And you know what he's bound to say? He's bound to say, look out for those transgenders kids, right? If you ask them why our child protective services system, 32,000 kids in foster care, is the worst run in the United States of America. Kids are trafficked within it, sexually abused within it by the hundreds. We lost the lives of 100 children in our custody and care. In the 9th largest economy on the planet, it's a $2 trillion GDP. We do not lack for resources to take care of the most vulnerable among us. It's just the political will. But dare you ask Greg Abbott about this. Hold on a second. We got Mexicans coming over the border right there. Look over there. I don't want you to look over here. You ask him why we're losing teachers by the thousands, and many of our kids don't have a permanent classroom teacher the entire year because he's attacking them one way after another, refusing to pay them a decent living wage. And he's going to tell you about CRT and make us afraid of our own history and the stories of each and every single Texan here. We're going to find a way to be bigger than that. We will not be governed literally by our fears and by our hatreds and by our differences. We are going to find a way to come together. And that's the opportunity that we have right now. Look, I know that these are some pretty dark days in the state of Texas. I mentioned that division that is completely breaking us apart right now. And when we're talking about darkness, I mean literally we cannot count that the lights will turn on this coming February because the grid is still not fixed. There are people, the women in this room, who are unable to make their own decisions about their own lives, and the cost is literally, the cost will be paid in lives of these women in Texas. We lead the developed world in the rate of maternal mortality because once you close down every reproductive health care clinic in a given area and make it impossible for a woman to access an abortion, it also becomes that much harder, if not impossible, to get a cervical cancer screening, to see a family planning provider, to see a doctor of any kind in the least insured state. If you are gay in the state of Texas and your government is proposing a Don't Say Gay bill this next session, if you are the parent of a transgender kid and they are promising to take your kiddo away from you, accusing you, the governor, the most powerful man in this state, of child abuse, the consequences of that accusation, if sustained, is that kid that you've done everything in the world to help and to love will be taken from your custody and care, as will every other child in your home, and turned over to that badly broken and failed CPS foster care system today. That's what we're up against. And listen, when I see this, when I hear this, when I meet people who are just beat down by what's going on in the state, I understand the temptation to despair and to say, you know what, I have the resources to leave this state, I'm going somewhere else, or I just give up and I give in, and that's just the cost of doing business in Texas today. But don't allow yourself to go there, and take heart that we can not only do this, we've done it before, and we've done it under much greater odds. When it comes to reproductive freedom, hear me out on this one. 1972, 50 years ago, abortion was every bit as illegal then as it is today in this state. But people who died from it. But you know what? No one came into Texas. As Janet said, no one rode to our rescue. There was no other cavalry that we waited on and came in and saved the day and said, here.
Fought and are still fighting.
That's right. Jane Roe, a Texas woman of Roe versus Wade. Linda Coffey, her attorney, who still lives in Dallas, Texas. Sarah Weddington, from that other big liberal hotspot of Abilene, Texas, not too far from here, successfully argued that case before an all-male United States Supreme Court and won protection for the constitutional right to privacy, to make very personal, very often painful decisions on your own. So here's what I have to say to you today. It was Texas women who won that right back in 1973. It's going to be Texas women who win it back because of you in 2022. We are going to do this. We've done it before. We will do it again. So look, the choice is pretty clear. We can come together and do big things together, respect each other, respect our rights, make sure that we can make our own decisions about our bodies, or who we want to marry, who we want to be with, how we want to live. We can make sure that we respect those who feel differently than we do. We're trying to do that in this room tonight. And so far, so good, right? And we're going to keep it going if we can. The alternative is this chaos, is this incompetence, is this corruption, is this cruelty that defines us in the eyes of the rest of this country, the world, and so many of our fellow Texans. But that, I would argue, is not us. When you have 7 million of our fellow Texans who did not vote in the 2020 presidential election, I'll repeat that, 7 million who were eligible to cast a ballot in the most consequential contest in American history who did not do so. I don't think that that's a reflection of all of us when you have these policies, when a minority of us have turned out to vote. But the only way to get the true majority to show up is for us to go out and meet them where they are. You all chose to come here tonight, and I love you for it. But imagine how many people are in their homes right now, in their businesses, finishing their third shift, have no idea that this contest is going on, that we're running for governor, that there's an opportunity to make their voice heard, their vote counted, and a change that their lives might literally depend on. If you will sign up with me, and we have a number of people who are wearing yellow vests in this room, I see them mostly in the back right here, they have slots open to knock on doors. These are canvas shifts where we're going to go ask you to get out there in the rain or the sunshine maybe tomorrow and go meet your fellow Texans where they are. With your own words, from your own lips, from your own heart, you describe to them why this election is so important to you. And with your own ears, you listen to them about what's most important in their lives. And I guarantee you, profoundly more powerful than any television ad we could air, or any spot on the radio that they may never hear, or a mailer that may just collect dust on their kitchen table, your physical presence, eyeball to eyeball, face to face, human to human, in this deeply divided moment, in this age where we're consumed by digital devices, that will break through. And you know what? We'll be knocking on the doors of the very people who have been written out of this democracy, the targets of those voter suppression and voter intimidation laws. And won't it be wonderful if on election night, the very people who were not supposed to participate, because you knocked on their doors and brought them in, provide the margin of victory when we win this thing together, right? That's what it's going to take. So, thank you all for being with us tonight. We have another microphone. We're going to get it out into the group so I can hear what's on your mind. But Palo Pinto, thank you for showing up. Thanks for inviting us out. Looking forward to the conversation. Cynthia Cano in this salmon-colored t-shirt is ready to take your questions. If you just raise your hand, and we don't have to agree, that's cool. And in fact, it's even necessary for democracy to work, but let's be civil and respectful to each other. Go for it, Ms. Cano.
All right, I would just ask to please keep it to one question so we can get to as many people as we can. Oh, you're okay? All right, here we go. Let's see. Right over here. Come this way, right around.
Hello. I've been thinking about this for months and wanting to talk to you in person. I want you to explain this to me and everybody else. I feel it's very important that we have security at our borders. And I know we don't have open borders like a lot of people are saying. But we need to do something to keep all these people from coming over and being buses and dropped off all over the Metroplex. I have a friend that works in the Metroplex, and he sees buses just drop people off at a shopping center parking lot or a Walmart parking lot. They have nowhere to go. They're not getting any assistance. What should we be doing about it? What are we doing about it? And I want safe borders. Republicans probably think Democrats don't want safe borders, because that's what they're told. But I think a lot of us are concerned about that. I don't want these people coming over and being dropped on a curb somewhere. It's not right. But we need some kind of immigration system.
Great question, and thank you for asking it. And as someone who lives on the border with my wife Amy, raising our 3 kids in El Paso, which as you know is connected to Ciudad Juarez, forming the largest binational community in this hemisphere, we're really concerned about the safety and security of our community and your community as well, the rest of the state and the rest of this country for that matter. And I think you're right to be concerned. The system that we have today is badly, badly broken. We have chaos. I'm going to answer this question. She's asking why is that. I'm happy to answer it. I'm happy to answer the question.
Wait your turn, please,
Yeah,
everybody.
and
Wait
I
your
will
turn.
even give you the microphone so you can ask another one. So it's badly broken. She says, why is that? I'll tell you what. Democrats, when they were in power, had a chance to fix it and didn't. Republicans, when they were in power, had a chance to fix it and they didn't. I sometimes cynically think, hold on a second, let me talk and I'm gonna let you talk. We're gonna do this the right way. I sometimes cynically think that both parties see this in their political advantage to leave this as an open issue so they can campaign on it and say, I will do this, I will do that. And then we're just going to keep campaigning on it and nothing will get done. Ronald Reagan was the president the last time we had any comprehensive immigration reform in this country. We're working with a system that was built in 1986 and we're in the year 2022 right now. No wonder this thing is not working. So what are the fixes?
Well, Trump was fixing it.
If you,
Just wait your turn.
no, I want to make sure. Let's be respectful. Listen. Just so everyone knows, one of the highest levels, and I think it is the highest level of apprehensions that we've ever had has been this past year. I think the second highest level was 2019 when Donald Trump was president. I'm not blaming either party. What I'm trying to say is this one is on all of us. We as a nation, we as a state have failed. Here's the fix. The vast majority of those who are trying to come into this country right now are coming for three principal reasons. And I'll get to others, but these are the three principal reasons. One, they're coming here to work, to take on jobs that no one born in this state or this country is willing to do. How do I know that? I've been to every county in this state. I'll give you one example. I go to Roscoe, Texas. You all know there's a cotton gin there, 46 jobs in that gin. I sit down with the gin manager. He said, Beto, it does not matter how much I pay. Not a single soul born in Roscoe, born in Sweetwater, born in Texas is willing to work these jobs. Immigrants will come and they'll cross in between the ports of entry if they have to for the privilege of making sure that we have these threads on our backs right now. You go to the slaughterhouses in the panhandle of Texas, you're going to find the same story. When I was meeting with farm workers in Brownsville, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley, almost all of them to a person were immigrants who were picking the food that all of us will be eating here tonight. Right now, to the woman's question, there is not a safe, legal, orderly, quick path to come here. If you're an employer trying to sponsor an immigrant, good luck, and thank you for those of you who do it the right way. But it is so onerous, so bureaucratic, so expensive, so hard that people just bypass that system altogether. Here's a second group. The line to come into this country legally from some of our countries like Mexico stretches back 20 years. I do not condone, nor do I want anyone to jump that line or break the law, but I understand why someone would say, you know what, I'm not going to wait 2 decades to be reunited with my family member. I'm going to try to skip this and jump in between the ports of entry. I don't want people to do it. Hear me loud and clear. I understand why people do. Third category. There are people who are seeking asylum or refuge in this country because they literally have no other place to go. For the O'Rourkes, 6 generations ago, it was, you're going to die of famine in Ireland, or you're going to get your ass somewhere else, and the United States is going to welcome you so that you can do better for yourself and hopefully do better for all of us. Thank God for America. The O'Rourkes are still alive, and we're producing the next generation right now. So if you're coming from El Salvador or Honduras or Guatemala, and you're living in one of the deadliest countries on the planet, bar none, and you cannot take your daughter back there because she'll be raped, you don't leave your son in that hometown because he will be killed, then I understand why you make this 2,000-mile journey, a lot of it on foot, some of it atop a train known as the Beast, La Bestia, and it didn't get that name for kicks. It is absolutely deadly. Think about this. You all read the story about the migrants who died in the back of that trailer, right, in San Antonio. So put yourself into the mind of one of those migrants and imagine that that smuggler has just opened the door to that trailer. What would possess you to get in? There's no air conditioning. It's already really hot out there. You don't know where this thing is going to take you or when those doors are going to open. You'd have to be in pretty desperate straits. Now take this next step with me. Imagine you're traveling with your 11-year-old son. What would possess you to reach down once you're already in the trailer and lift him up with you? That's who died, right? I would do that. I've got an 11-year-old son. I would only do that, though, if to stay in our community, in our country, might mean his very death. I would take our chances and go to the next country up, wherever I could go to secure his life. All of us who are parents or grandparents, we feel that. That is the prime impulse, right? Like, I got to make sure my kid is okay. So look, if we have a safe, legal, orderly path for someone who wants to come here and work, for somebody who wants to come here and join family, for someone who is seeking asylum, and by legal I mean if they have problems, if they don't pass the bar for their asylum request, they go back to their country of origin, no two ways about it. But if they do, they don't wait 6 years right now in these refugee camps in Ciudad Juarez or Reynosa or Matamoros. We do this in 6 weeks instead of 6 years, and they have an answer and some certainty in their lives. We do that. We do that. We take workers, people who want to unify with family, refugees, we take them off the table. And you know who's left? Those who want to traffic illegal drugs like fentanyl. Those who want to traffic and trade in human beings. Those are the needles in this massive tens of thousands of person haystack that we're dealing with right now. No wonder we're having such a hard time keeping our communities safe from this dangerous stuff that is being brought in. So let's do the right thing, as Ronald Reagan, a Republican, did in the 1980s. Let's do the right thing as those Democrats who worked with them from across the aisle and come up with a Texas-based plan to get this done so that we no longer have this as an issue that dominates the conversation or allow demagogues in power like Donald Trump or Greg Abbott to try to scare us about an invasion of people coming over to get us, to issue these demands that we defend ourselves and take matters into our own hands. Last thing on this. Here's why another reason this is life and death. 3 years ago, in my hometown of El Paso, on the 3rd of August, 2019, a gunman who'd been hearing about invasions and infestations and animals and rapists and attackers who were coming to get him and take over our country, bought an AK-47, drove it 650 miles to El Paso, Texas, walked into a Walmart after posting a manifesto saying that he had arrived with this weapon of war to repel the invasion he had been warned about, and murdered 23 people in my community. Not even 20 people a year are murdered in my community. In minutes, he took that many down. So if we leave this issue open and unsolved, I guarantee you it's going to continue to break our country apart. What better state than ours to lead the way going forward? A Texas-based immigration plan. Thanks for asking.
Same area.
La próxima.
Here we go. And thank you for everybody for raising your hand and waiting your turn. Really appreciate it.
This also kind of touches on the subject of immigration. I am a fellow DACA recipient, and I was just wondering about,
what are your plans? How can you help us? How can you help people like me who weren't able to get DACA? How can you help people that I go to? You know, I go to the University of Texas at Arlington, and I created an organization to help DACA recipients, you know, to help people who were in the situation as I was. How can you as governor help us in this case?
Thanks for asking the question. Anyway, so I am moved by meeting you. I'm compelled by the moral issue at stake of doing the right thing by a country that's comprised largely of immigrants and asylum seekers. But if you're not, and if you just want to do what's in the cold, calculated interest of the state of Texas, Dreamers are contributing billions of dollars more into our communities, our state, and our country than they will ever be able to draw down over the course of their life, even if they live to be over 100 years old. Imagine how much more they could do if they not only have legal permanent residency without question of it being revoked or being deported at some future date, but had United States citizenship to fully pursue their potential and live up to their promise. We have hundreds of thousands of DACA beneficiaries, of Dreamers here in the state of Texas. No place on the planet will do better than Texas if we do the right thing. So yes, fully legalize with citizenship and make sure there's a path for their parents, the original Dreamers. Thank you for being here. Le agradezco. Gracias. Thank you.
Yes, I taught English to people seeking their citizenships, both in Fort Worth and then out here in Parker County. And these were families, these were workers, these were honest people. And dealing with the immigration problem right now, They haven't opened any new offices, hired any new judges. They haven't made it cheaper or easier to get your citizenship, but they're talking about building a wall, deporting people, and separating families. That is not an answer to the immigration problem.
That's right.
They need someplace these people can come in, fill out paperwork, go on the docket somewhere, and get their citizenship.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. Got to have a safe, legal, orderly way to do this. We're missing that right now. Texas should lead. Ms. Connie.
Thank you, Beto, for coming to our area and campaigning. I don't have a question in particular for you, but it is about something that you said about 10 minutes ago about immigration. In our county, Parker County, which is where I'm from, our commissioner's court passed some dumbass resolution about completing the border. That's not exactly what it says, but it's related to that. And when asked if they were going to spend our tax money to do it, they said, "Oh no, it's not legal to spend our tax money." But it's okay if they spend the money that was that Congress appropriated in the beginning of Joe Biden's administration to help with COVID and other infrastructure kinds of things. I just want to say to people who agree and who disagree, economic immigrants are not my enemy. They're also not your enemy. Abbott people, they're not your enemy either. Economic immigrants perform a service that Texans and Americans have to have. If they're not in our slaughterhouses, where are you going to get your T-bones? When you go to the restaurants, who's going to bust your tables? Who's going to cook your food? Who's going to serve it? For the ones of you who have a little bit of money, who's going to clean your house and who's going to cut your yard? I know you ain't going to do it. And I know something else. I ain't going to do it either. So let's welcome these people in instead of demonizing them. Let's realize, I want to say this, just a very short saying. You take 100 red ants and you take 100 black ants and you put them together in one jar and you set it down and they won't pay any attention to each other. But if you shake that jar, they'll fight each other to the death. And they got one common enemy. It's the person that shook the jar. And the political person pulling y'all strings are the ones that's shaking the jar. They're your common enemies. Vote them the hell out.
Hello, sir. I drive truck for a living, okay? And I see a lot of new roads that are going into some of these subdivisions, okay? Meanwhile, we have other roads, Interstate 20, Interstate 30, all these highways and byways that are crumbling. What are we going to do to try and fix this? Every morning, I have to inspect my vehicle. I do a pre-trip inspection, and at night, I do a post-trip inspection. My vehicle has to be roadworthy. Why aren't these roads vehicle-worthy?
Yeah, I love this question. There is, and I bet you know this, there's $8 billion in the TxDOT bank account right now, Texas Department of Transportation. Part of the reason we have these town halls is so that when we win, we can hit the ground running in January of 2023. Where are the needs? As a gentleman just highlighted, and where do these resources need to go? We have a budget surplus that is over $20 billion. A rainy day fund that puts us well close to $40 billion of income in this state that we can use to reduce property taxes, invest in infrastructure, and that doesn't even count the federal money coming from this bipartisan infrastructure bill that Joe Biden signed into law. That can go into broadband, it can go into water systems, and it absolutely has to go into roads. Some parts of this state are getting the attention, the funding, the resources. Other parts of this state aren't getting anything at all. And I'll tell you what, part of the reason that I go to places, folks will say, why are you going to Parker County? Why are you going to Palo Pinto County? Why are you going to Bowie, Texas? Why are you going to Mineral Wells? Those are red counties. And I say, you know what? Democrats have feared to tread for so long, just literally have refused to show up, written these folks off completely, yet Republicans don't have to show up either, right? Because there's no contest in November. These folks go functionally unrepresented and unheard. I joked earlier about Greg Abbott holding a town hall meeting here, and y'all laugh because he hasn't and he won't. But the reason he doesn't is he's sleeping on you. Your votes are already in the bank as far as he's concerned, right? Doesn't have to worry about this stuff. We are fighting for your votes, fighting to earn your support, and the only way I can keep it is to come back in this very room, if you'll have me once I'm governor, and answer your questions and be held accountable by you. So that includes appointing commissioners to the Texas Department of Transportation who are going to look out for every part of the state. Not those who gave the most money to the candidate, but those who are actually from areas like Mineral Wells so that we get investment in these resources. In other words, we have tens of billions of dollars to make this investment right now. $8 billion alone in the TxDOT account. Let's make sure that we spend that money where it's going to do the most good. As you know, what you do makes us more competitive as a state, grows that $9 trillion economy, provides an amazing job for you and your family. Let's have more of that, but we're only going to do that if we invest in ourselves. Thanks for asking the question. Appreciate it.
Straight back, same area.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Allie. I am a mother of 3 young children, and you touched on the subject about tightening gun laws. But I have 2 children who are in school. They're ages 7 and 5. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid to send them to school this year. You're going to tighten gun laws, which is all fine and well. But when we look at the fact of the matter, there will always be guns, especially in Texas. What are you going to do on the ground to protect our schools? We can take guns from people. We can put laws on people. But at the end of the day, there will still be guns in Texas. And there will still be people that can get those hands on those guns. What are you going to do at each individual school? I don't care about Chicago. I'm in Texas.
Thanks for the question. And I'm glad that you raised the question this way, because everything that I described earlier will not stop every instance of gun violence. And we should acknowledge that right away. It will reduce the number. It could have prevented something like Uvalde or El Paso or red flag law or raising the minimum age of purchase. That would have helped. But there are other scenarios where it won't. So what else can we do? I want to make sure that we're listening to you, to teachers, to parents, to students, to principals at these campuses. Each campus, my kids go to a middle school in El Paso and they go to a high school in El Paso. Vastly different campuses and dynamics and security concerns. Number of doors, one building's more than 100 years old, the other is 30 years old. That principal and those administrators there understand where the weaknesses are. Let's make sure that we pay any price to make sure that they are secure. Whether it's an issue with the doors, which keeps coming up again and again after that investigation in Uvalde, or the fact that that teacher was unable to lock her door to begin with. She put in the work order request and apparently it hadn't been honored. That's what I read. Let's find out when we get all the details and facts from this. But they're going to know their campuses better than anyone else. So when we were in East Texas, folks would describe how they feel secure in their schools. They say, hey, Beto, will you support us? Absolutely. I'm here to be your partner, not to mandate a solution to you from afar, not to prevent you from doing your own thing. There was a party once in Texas that believed in local control. We have a chance to assume that mantle right now and get behind it. There are other things we can do as well. The governor mentioned, and mentioned again recently, but he did this the day after Uvalde, that this is a mental health care problem. And can we do better in mental health care? Absolutely. We're 51st in the nation today. The problem is, he took $211 million out of the state's mental health care budget the month before Uvalde. So we've literally got to put our money where our mouth is to fund these schools for their security, to fund mental health care, to do some smart things, bipartisan things, common sense things, on guns and who can buy them and who can have them and how they are used and whether or not an 18-year-old should be able to buy 2 AR-15s. These are things that we can do that are going to make us safer. I just want you to know on a personal level, I share your anxiety. My kids started their sophomore, freshman, and 6th grade years last Monday. We get started early in El Paso. And, a week and a half into this year, that is constantly on my mind because not a thing has changed in this state since that shooting or the Santa Fe High School shooting or other shootings that we've had. It's really time that we change this, and it's going to be on all of us to get that done. So thank you for asking the question. Really, really good question.
I'm right here. I'm going to do 3 more questions.
Okay.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here, and I do appreciate the shout outs. I myself am an immigrant from El Salvador. I came to the U.S. as a refugee. My mom did cross every single border on foot illegally, and it wasn't until she was in the U.S. where she was able to ask for refuge. And this was all under Reagan's years as well. So because of him, we had to flee our country, and because of him, I'm also a citizen in the United States today. I'm also a small business owner. I'm one of 3 out of 5 children so far that have gone through college and have provided to this nation in an economic and prosperous way. Beyond that, I actually brought my business here to Texas. But beyond that, I did bring my business here to Texas, and I hoped that when I bought a home here that I could send my daughter off to college here in Texas. But with everything that's been happening in the war against women, especially coming from the leadership here in Texas, it has put a damper on our plans and our hopes and our dreams for our daughter, who is a senior in high school, just started this week. But what will we be doing here in Texas to secure the fact of the rights of women? Because for us as parents right now, our only thing is there's just no way that we're gonna leave her here in Texas for 4 years during college. I wanna be assured that my daughter will be safe here, and what we're gonna do to recognize the rights of women's and reproductive rights of everyone here in Texas.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. And just to make sure everyone's on the same page, it's a total ban on abortion, no exception for rape or incest. High maternal mortality rate, as we discussed earlier. On this, let me, actually, this woman brings up a good point. He did, so at the press conference or the bill signing ceremony.
Wait your turn. Wait.
At the bill signing ceremony where he's signing this ban into law, a reporter asks, Mr. Governor, you realize there's no exception for rape? And like the deer in the headlights or the dog who caught the car, he says, we're going to eliminate rape in the state of Texas. to the safety and security of every single one of us, especially our daughters, the women here in this state. More rapes have been committed in Texas than any other state. There are thousands of untested rape kits on the shelves of DPS offices in Austin, Texas right now. The ability to bring a perpetrator to justice, a rapist to justice in Texas, has declined by half since this guy took office. So not only is he not eliminating rape, it is as bad as it's ever been. It's as bad as it is anywhere in the country. The question is, what are we going to do to change this? Well, first of all, winning this election, imagine this. For the first time in 32 years, not only do you have a Democrat win this office, but you have someone who is running on a platform of choice and making sure that women are trusted to make their own decisions about their own body. The last time we had that kind of spirit in Texas, Ann Richards won the office in 1990. So that will absolutely change what is possible and the political calculus and the dynamic, including from Republican legislators. Because if we were to somehow administer truth serum to them and then ask them what their number one priority in the world is, and if they had to answer honestly, they'd say it is to get reelected. That's almost every politician, regardless of party, right? And if they see the sea change in this state on public sentiment, and right now I think 11%, all of 11% of Texans agree with Greg Abbott that there should be a total ban on abortion, no exception for rape or incest. You have pro-life and pro-choice Texans who disagree with that. It is so extreme, so deadly, and so dangerous. We're going to find a way to work with people to overturn that total abortion ban, to prioritize the lives of women again, because this is a life and death matter, as we established earlier, and to be able to attract and retain talent, whether it's your daughter or the employees that you are attracting here for the jobs that you are creating. We are going to lose out. Our economy is going to suffer. But in addition, y además, there's this. Part of the way I think we got here was a failure on the part of so many, myself included, to ever imagine that we could be here. You asked me a couple of years ago, can Texas have a total ban on abortion, no exception for rape or incest? Hell no, no way that that's going to happen. I know they say they want to do that. It'll never happen. We have Roe versus Wade on the books. It stood the test of time for nearly half a century. Well, that is where we live today, and more is coming down the pike. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, in his consenting opinion to the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe versus Wade, said the following: next on the chopping block is contraception. Following that will be marriage equality, and following that will be same-sex intimacy, meaning they'll literally revive the sodomy laws in the state of Texas. The ability to veto this stuff before it ever sees the light of day, to use every tool at our disposal, whether it's executive action or the leverage to bring legislators to the table to make sure that we do something better than we have right now. I just want you to hear this, and I want your daughter to know this. I'm going to do everything I can to fight for you so that you can live to your full potential in this state with your rights fully secured and protected. We're going to be there for you. Thank you so much. Grateful.
Okay, we're going to do our last two questions together.
Okay.
She's going to ask first, she'll ask first, and then we'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Conner.
Hi, I'm Cammie. So I'm a waitress and I have 2 jobs. And for the last year, I've also had to babysit my 5-year-old granddaughter after I got off work at those 2 jobs, because me or her mother cannot live off of the minimum wage that is paid. So my question is, what are your plans to help the working class with a livable minimum wage? The waitress minimum wage has not been raised, I think, since 1991. It's $2.13 an hour. So I have to work 2 jobs in order to pay my bills and then come home and watch my 5-year-old granddaughter because she can't afford childcare. Yeah. So what are your plans for childcare and a livable minimum wage?
Yeah. I love this. Do you want me to answer this first or take another one? We're going to take this one and we're going to roll it all into one answer.
Okay, hi Beto. First, I'm very shy and I also have autism, so thank you for bearing with me. But I'm really here to advocate for my brother. He's already out in the car. So individuals with IDD, so intellectual disabilities, are often forgotten in Texas. And I just hope as governor that you'll remember my brother and others. Currently our wait list for our services are 15 to 20 years, not months, but years long. And the only reason my brother has services is because my dad died, and I've dedicated my career to understanding services so that I can advocate for him. So I made this kind of silly looking little packet for you. So just please don't forget about us, and when you're voting and doing funding, please just remember that, you know, Medicaid expansion really does matter, and there's so many of us, especially in rural Texas, who really, really need services.
Great, thank you so much. Let me take these series of really good questions. We're hearing about the minimum wage, our question about childcare, Texans with disabilities, especially intellectual disabilities, and we'll just add to that parents of children who are medically complex and require a lot of attention, a lot of help, and are very expensive to take care of, especially in this state. Beginning with the minimum wage. The other part of the minimum wage, in addition to tipped employees that hasn't been raised in a while, is the minimum wage for everyone else. It's been at $7.25. So both for tipped employees, servers at a restaurant or a bar, or anyone working any job in the state of Texas, let's set the floor at $15 an hour, below which no one will be asked to work in the state of Texas, because you cannot do $2.25 full-time, you can't do $7.25 full-time, and make the note on your mortgage or put food on the table or fill your prescription. You have to work, as the woman said, 2 or 3 jobs to be able to do that. That is not enough, though. Okay, so here's what else we have to do. I mentioned expanding Medicaid so that you can actually afford to take care of yourself and be healthy enough to go to that just one job instead of 2 or 3. The question was brought up about childcare. We need to invest in all-day universal pre-K in the state of Texas. No matter your zip code, your income, that 3-year-old, that 4-year-old, she's in daycare or preschool, and we do this at public expense. But you know what? The public ends up benefiting. The GDP to the state of Texas loses out on $9 billion a year because there are those who cannot afford childcare, and so they're at home with their kids instead of being out there in the workforce or starting a job or creating employees through the businesses that they start. So investing in childcare, universal pre-K, a minimum wage at 15, expanding Medicaid, and then getting to this. Whatever your faith tradition, or if you have none whatsoever and you look to something else to determine your conscience, you, I bet, will agree with the way that we treat the most vulnerable among us really defines us in the eyes of our Maker, or just our conscience, or our kids, who are, for me, my ultimate judge, right? And I mentioned the way that we treat kids in the foster care system today. Unconscionable, unacceptable to me. We are absolutely going to prioritize them when we win. But my sister, who has significant intellectual disabilities, when she graduated from high school, we learned that our wait list, my mom did, was 18 years to get state-supported services. And we asked, well, why didn't you tell us 18 years ago when she was 1 year old and you knew she had these problems? What's the secret handshake to get in on the deal? Well, I was knocking on doors the other day in Bowie, Texas. And, I asked everyone whose door I knocked on, tell me what's important to you. What can we do to make Texas better for you? And he talked about his son, who he was at home with that day. He has a job from home so he can be with his son who has intellectual disabilities. He said, Beto, we lived in Colorado before. And when we first moved to Colorado, the wait list was 18 years. Colorado legalized marijuana and devoted the proceeds from taxing the controlled, regulated sale of that substance to healthcare, including state-supported services for those with disabilities in the state. The wait time today is under 1 year in the state of Colorado. So we have the resources, we have the wealth, we just need the political will to do the right thing. And when we do, that independence of living that your brother's going to have, being at the table as decisions are made, not being institutionalized, being able to contribute back so much, we are all going to be able to benefit from that. So let's make sure that we're doing right by and for one another. And if we do that now, in this campaign, knocking on these doors, talking to our fellow Texans, we're going to win this election. We win this election, we're going to be able to deliver for one another, and this state is going to be back on the right track again. Thank you, Mineral Wells, for having us out. So grateful to you, Palo Pinto, Parker counties. We'll see you again very soon.
If y'all would like to stay and say hi and take a quick picture, we're going to be